Hey everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the October 5th edition of Horses to Watch, where we carefully analyze trips from the last week, looking for horses that encountered adversity and could be worth betting back when they run back in the future. This week, I'm looking back at three races from early last week at Aqueduct or Belmont at the Big A. All of these are dirt races. One of them is from the Thursday card. I just want to talk about a pace situation. And two of them are from Friday, September 30th. Two races from that day because I think that we saw a track bias on the dirt course that is worth discussing that negatively affected a couple of horses in particular. Let's, though, begin with that race from Thursday, September 29th. It is the last race of the day, race 9, a New York bred maiden special weight event going 6 furlongs for the 2-year-olds on the main track. Let's break these runners from the gate. And I want to focus on a first-time starter, the number 3, Looms Boldly. And you can see he's the one with the white bridle whose nose dipped down there right at the start. He stumbled coming out of the starting gate, but despite that poor beginning, he rushes right up to take the early lead. You can see that horse is just rocketing after he stumbled out of the starting gate up to the front end there, and he's going to open up along with the number 4, Thank You, John. And these two really duel through the opening quarter mile of this race. You can see that this field is really spread out as they head for the far turn. Actually, the eventual winner of this race is going to come from greater than 10 lengths back here. That's actually the number 2, who's going to make a big late charge to get up to win. And I think that horse is the one that's going to attract a lot of attention from most people coming out of this race. But I was actually more impressed with the performance of this number 3, Looms Boldly, who, as you can see, in this strung out field, he is leading the charge to the stretch. And the fractions might not look that fast, 23, 47, but the track was pretty dead on Thursday, playing very slowly. And if you look up Timeform US pace figures for this race, all of the pace figures are color-coded in red, indicating a fast pace. And this horse was going pretty quickly up front. And you can see he puts away that number 4 that was dueling with him, opens up a big lead at the 8th pole. And there comes that first-time start of the number 2, who's going to run him down right at the finish line. But I thought that Looms Boldly put in a really game performance to hold on for second here. And speaking of those Timeform US pace figures, we assign these Timeform US speed figures for these horses with a pace adjustment. And actually, Looms Boldly got a Timeform US speed figure of 88 for this race, despite finishing second. That number is 15 points higher than the number that the winner got because he got a huge pace upgrade for setting that extremely fast pace. This runner was going out for trainer Brad Cox, a barn that can get runners to improve after they have a start under their belts. He's got a nice pedigree, being a half-brother to stakes winner Critical Value, also the very fast dirt sprinter Steam Engine. So I think that Looms Boldly could have a future if he's able to find himself in a more friendly pace scenario next time out. Let's move on to those two races from Friday, September 30th. Beginning with race 5, this is an optional claiming 62,500, non-winners of 2 other than the allowance condition, going 6.5 furlongs on the dirt for older horses. Let's break these runners from the gate, and I want to focus on the number 2, Stage Left. Now, the situation that I want to talk about with this Friday card is a potential dead rail. There were only 4 dirt races run on Friday, so it's hard to have high confidence in a track bias when you have such a small sample size. But in those 4 dirt races, you saw a continuous pattern of horses that stayed on the rail for the entirety of their trips, just basically hitting a brick wall when they get to the top of the stretch. And it seemed like that dead rail bias was really pronounced once they got into the stretch on Friday at Belmont at the Big A, because horses that rode the rail into the stretch, it's just like they were facing some sort of headwind that nobody else was because they really shortened stride and tired badly. And that's going to be the case with the number 2 Stage Left you see here. The other horse that rode the rails, the number 1, St. Selby, he was the even money favorite in this race. And despite going off at such short odds, he's also going to fall apart when we get into the stretch of this race. But it's Stage Left who stays on the rail after riding the inside on the turn. His rider, Eric Cancel, is whipping right-handed and navigates him down towards the inside. Looks like he's potentially making a winning move right here, but you can see those 2 that stayed inside are just going to tire badly, whereas horses that are running out in the center of the racetrack, the number 5 and 6, who looked like they were moving at the same rate as that inside runner when they got to the quarter pole, they're the ones that are going to kick onto the wire and actually finish a good 8 or 9 lengths ahead of Stage Left by the time they get to the finish line. So I think this horse ran better than it appears. He was coming off a big performance at Saratoga 3-back when he earned a 97 buyer in victory that day. Seems like he's regressed in 2 subsequent starts, but I think he subtly ran better than it appears in this 4th place finish from last Friday. So he's a horse that I think could rebound with a much better performance when he shows up in a similar spot next time. The other race from Friday, September 30th, that I want to talk about is race 8. This was a claiming 40,000 event going a mile and an eighth, 2 turns on the main track at Aqueduct. Let's break these runners from the gate. And another horse that I want to focus on was the one riding the rail, the number 5, American Tattoo. He is a front runner, so you can see his rider, Louis Sias, hustling out to the front end. That's what you want to see happen, except for the fact that he guides this horse right over to the inside path and basically stays there for the entire race. And every horse that stayed on the inside, especially early in the race and in the stretch, just completely collapsed. And that's what's going to happen to American Tattoo. And you do want to note it's a horse that stayed outside for the entirety of his trip. I believe it's the number 7 who ultimately wins this race, 235. He raises 2 to 3 wide for this entire race. Now, American Tattoo is a horse that was going out for trainer Norm Cassie in this race. He'd actually run pretty well to win a race at Keeneland back in April, but was avoided claim that day, had a layoff subsequently, came back for a race at Saratoga at a similar level in the slop earlier last month, and actually ran okay behind Bal Harbour, who somehow refound his form to win decisively that day. But I thought American Tattoo ran okay off the layoff, and it's going to seem like he took a big step backwards here, second off the layoff, for Norm Cassie in this race from last Friday. But like I was saying, due to the track bias, I don't think he ran nearly as poorly as it might seem. And you can see even here, he's coming off the bridle before anybody else riding that inside path, despite the fact that the pace of this race was not fast at all. 50 and change for the half mile, 115 and change for the 3/4 mark, and they come home pretty quickly in this race. So the race falls apart despite the fact that American Tattoo was going pretty slowly on the front end. And I just think that's because of the fact that he is riding the rail path for all of his trip. And you can see even here, as he's fading, he's staying down inside, and it's just like he's running through quicksand, whereas the others are running in a much better path on the outside as he continues to drop back through the stretch. Interestingly, American Tattoo was claimed out of this race by Belmont, a trainer who does not claim very many horses at all. So I think he's going to be staying in New York for the wintertime, or at least the foreseeable future when he runs back next time, rather than going to Kentucky with Norm Cassie's string. So a horse that we could get to play back in New York next time as he races first off the claim for trainer Belmont in a subsequent start, because I do think due to that track bias on Friday, he ran better than it appears. So those are all the horses to watch from this past week. If you want to follow these horses moving forward, you can add them to your horse watch on DRF.com and get email notifications when these horses run back in the future. Thanks for tuning in this week, and make sure to catch future episodes of Horses to Watch on upcoming Wednesdays.